James stared in disbelief as his food truck, the heart of his mission to feed his community, was hooked by a tow truck, disappearing into the city's shadowy bureaucracy. A veteran punished for kindness, silenced without warning. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The morning light crept through James Carter's kitchen window as he sipped his black coffee, unaware that by the day's end, everything he'd worked for would be torn away. For years, James had carried a simple yet steadfast belief that service never really ended when you left the military. His small food truck, Liberty Bites, wasn't just a business. It was his manifesto, a mobile tribute to resilience, community, and honor. The truck bore a painted American flag, a silhouette of a Marine helmet, and a slogan that read, "Feeding those who serve and those who need." Every meal served was a quiet act of gratitude, a way to remind neighbors and strangers alike that veterans still stood ready. Not on battlefields, but at the heart of their communities. James had sacrificed more than most knew, years in tough deployments, a body marked by scars, and a soul tested by loss. When he pulled his life savings into the battered old truck, he wasn't chasing profit. He was chasing purpose. Liberty Bites had become a fixture at every local charity event, food drive, and veterans gathering in town. Its presence was more than food, it was solidarity in action. Parents brought their children to meet James, often sharing stories about family members who served. Local police officers, firefighters, and even teachers stopped by for a quick bite and a word of thanks. For the people who lined up each day, Liberty Bites was a small refuge of dignity and connection in an increasingly fractured world. But that fragile equilibrium shattered like glass the morning James saw the city's yellow tow notices plastered across his empty parking spot. His truck, his livelihood, his symbol, was gone. His heart dropped into a pit of disbelief and confusion. He replayed every detail, trying to understand how this could happen. The city claimed the spot was restricted, that someone had complained, and that the rules were clear and unyielding. The irony cut deep. The very week he'd lent Liberty Bites to Marine recruiters to feed free meals at a recruitment event was the same week the city tore his dream apart. The recruiters, with their polished uniforms and glossy brochures, had used his truck as a stage, feeding eager crowds, shining a spotlight on military service and opportunity. Yet, for James, that service translated to punishment. The bureaucratic gears didn't turn with honor or nuance. They ground down the man who had given so much. Karen Mitchell, the parking enforcement chief, was firm and unyielding. Her tone, clipped and devoid of empathy, echoed in James's mind, "Rules are rules, no exceptions." The cold pragmatism of the city's stance felt like a betrayal, not just of James, but of the very community they claimed to protect. He wondered how a city so proud of its military history could justify treating a veteran this way, especially one who had dedicated his post-service life to helping others. James's anger simmered beneath the surface, mingling with a raw, aching sense of abandonment. It wasn't simply about a towed truck, it was the message behind it. That despite all his sacrifices and efforts to serve his neighbors, he was disposable, sidelined by red tape and indifference. Meanwhile, the Marine recruiters, glossy and untouchable, continued their mission unscathed, using his truck to further their agenda without consequence. In that moment, James felt the sting of injustice, how a system designed to uphold order could so casually punish kindness, turning a veteran's gift into an obstacle. His mind raced, not just with frustration, but with the urgent question of what to do next. Liberty Bites wasn't just a truck, it was a lifeline to the people who depended on it, and to James himself. Without it, the spirit of service he'd so carefully nurtured seemed to flicker dangerously low. Yet beneath the shock, beneath the rising fury, a seed of determination took root. This wasn't the end of James Carter's story, not by a long shot. News of the towing spread like wildfire through the veins of social media and the channels of local news stations. Within hours, James Carter's story transcended the boundaries of his immediate neighborhood, igniting a fierce outcry that blended indignation with empathy. Veterans who recognized the weight of his sacrifice, neighbors who had come to know Liberty Bites as a pillar of community, and complete strangers who believed in fairness all converged in a virtual chorus of support. The comments flooded in, expressions of outrage, pledges to help, memories of their own struggles, and calls for justice. The internet, usually a realm of fragmented noise, suddenly hummed with a singular purpose: to stand behind James. Yet, beneath this swelling wave of solidarity, James felt an aching fissure open inside him. Not merely the pain of losing his truck, but a profound sense of betrayal. The city's rigid enforcement of rules, its refusal to bend for a man who embodied service, left a bitter taste. The regulations, once thought to protect order and fairness, now appeared to suffocate compassion and ignore the human cost of bureaucratic indifference. Worse still, the Marine recruiters who had benefited from Liberty Bites' goodwill, those very figures who had leveraged James's truck as a centerpiece for their own mission, offered no support, no word of protest. They were silent, detached, as if the truck was theirs to borrow, but James was invisible. This silence cut deeper than the towing itself. It crystallized the harsh reality that goodwill alone did not guarantee respect or protection. It was a sharp lesson in how easily acts of service could be overshadowed by political convenience and institutional self-interest. James felt the sting of invisibility, a veteran whose sacrifices were publicly praised but privately disregarded when it mattered most. Yet, amidst this pain, a fragile but tenacious spark of hope began to flicker. The turning point came when Emily Torres, a local journalist known for her tenacity and keen sense of justice, took interest in James's plight. Emily's investigation peeled back layers of the city's enforcement practices with unflinching scrutiny. What she uncovered was damning. Marine recruiters had secured a special permit that allowed them to park and operate Liberty Bites at events without restriction, a privilege granted quietly and without James's knowledge or consent. The truck, a symbol of his lifelong service and sacrifice, had been co-opted under special exemptions, leaving him excluded from the very privileges extended in its name. Emily's reports hit the public like a thunderclap. Her detailed accounts exposed a glaring double standard, provoking heated debates on local news and social media forums. Officials were forced onto the defensive, confronted with mounting evidence of inconsistency and favoritism. The community's outrage grew not just from sympathy for James, but from the undeniable injustice of a system that privileged institutional interests over an individual veteran's dignity. Emboldened by this surge of awareness and support, James found renewed strength. The swelling chorus of allies, veterans groups, neighborhood activists, and concerned citizens became more than a comfort. It became a foundation. He reached out deliberately, forging connections with local veterans organizations, community leaders, and fundraisers dedicated to causes like his own. Plans took shape swiftly: fundraising campaigns to reclaim Liberty Bites, petitions demanding policy reviews, and public forums to amplify the conversation about fairness and respect for those who serve. James refused to let the towing signify an end. To him, Liberty Bites was more than metal and machinery. It was a beacon of hope, a testament to resilience, and a rallying point for collective action. Even in the shadow of loss, he stood firm, fueled by the belief that community and justice were not abstract ideals, but living, breathing forces capable of turning pain into progress. Weeks of relentless advocacy culminated in a moment that transcended the typical rhythms of municipal governance. The city council chamber, usually a space of detached deliberation and procedural formalities, transformed into a battleground for justice and recognition. The air was thick with anticipation as community members, veterans, journalists, and activists filled every available seat, their presence a palpable reminder of the stakes at hand. James Carter, standing beside his beloved Liberty Bites, exuded a quiet but resolute strength, a veteran who had weathered storms far graver than this, yet had never lost sight of purpose. The hearing began with Karen Mitchell, the parking enforcement chief, under intense scrutiny. Her usual posture of unyielding pragmatism faltered under pointed inquiries about the glaring discrepancy between the treatment of James and the Marine recruiters. Questions from council members cut through the bureaucratic veneer. How was it that the recruiters enjoyed special permits for the same truck, yet James faced penalties? Why had this privilege been concealed from him? Was there an institutional bias against veterans who acted independently of official channels? Each query underscored the ethical and administrative failures the city had to confront. As the discussion unfolded, city officials acknowledged a profound lapse, not merely a procedural oversight, but a fundamental failure to uphold equitable treatment. The revelations ignited a sense of collective accountability, compelling the city to make concessions that went beyond mere damage control. They agreed to rescind all fines levied against James and to release Liberty Bites without further delay, an immediate rectification that restored not only the truck, but a sense of justice. Yet the council's resolutions extended further, embodying a commitment to systemic reform. They pledged to establish clear, transparent policies governing food truck operations, ensuring that all vendors, particularly veterans serving their communities, would be treated with fairness and respect. These guidelines promised to eliminate loopholes and informal privileges that had previously skewed enforcement, signaling an institutional willingness to learn and evolve. For James, this represented a victory not only for himself, but for every independent operator marginalized by rigid bureaucracy. In the days that followed, a public event celebrated this hard-won triumph. Under a bright sky, with Liberty Bites gleaming and busier than ever, James addressed the gathered crowd. His voice carried the weight of gratitude, tempered with humility. He thanked the community for its unwavering support, emphasizing that this victory was collective, a testament to the power of unity and civic engagement. "This isn't just my fight," he said. "It's a reminder to our city and to all of us that service is about more than rules. It's about people." The Marine recruiters, chastened by public backlash and renewed scrutiny, stepped forward with a public apology. They acknowledged their complicity in the injustice and pledged to stand with veterans like James going forward. This gesture, while symbolic, marked a shift toward genuine accountability and collaboration, bridging a divide that had fractured community trust. James's journey, from the initial shock of injustice through the depths of pain and rising hope, culminating in a resounding triumph, resonated far beyond Liberty Bites' immediate circle. It became a beacon for anyone confronting systemic unfairness, illustrating how resilience combined with collective action can disrupt entrenched power dynamics. His story affirmed that bureaucracy, often perceived as impenetrable and indifferent, can be challenged and reshaped by human kindness and tenacity. Liberty Bites today stands not merely as a food truck, but as a symbol of perseverance, of community solidarity, and of the enduring belief that justice can prevail. It reminds all who pass by that sometimes the greatest service is standing up, speaking out, and rallying others to do the same.